I'm Maya Geis. It's a Panikin production. And this is Whitewater. Well, it's officially 2026, and what a year it's been. As some of you may have gathered, this year's marked a new beginning for me. In February, I quit my job to start my own small creative shop. I call the shop Panikin, Panakin. It's a word I made up to capture the spirit of creative urgency, and people are having fun with the name.
The Panikin thing, I'm panicking. How is life at Panikin?
That's my friend James.
It's good. It's been a journey. Every day's a new day. But I feel like I jumped off the cliff, not entirely knowing where I would land. And so I still feel like I'm floating, but it's been fun figuring it out. Having to do for myself what I do for other people.
Yeah, okay. I have a poem up in my kitchen. Do you know Come to the Edge? Come to the edge. And they said it's too high. And he says, come to the edge and say, we might fall. Come to the edge. And they came and he pushed and they flew.
I love that.
It's beautiful. I just say it to my kids and they know it. So I do call and response with them. I'm like, come to the edge. And they say, it's too high. And my daughter and one of my Father's Day cards was like, you took me to the edge and I jumped.
Oh, cute.
All right.
So amazing.
And yeah, but it's also what you just said there about how you jumped. You don't know how it's going to be, but that's the way to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the perfect lead into this conversation. So we're going to jump in. I won't let you deflect.
Yeah, he tried. He tried to make this interview about me. But this show isn't about me. It's about people like you. People navigating the unknown. It's stories of tenacity and grit, new ideas, ambitious plans. Stories about people doing things that have never been done before. Stories of pioneers, people mastering their craft, taking risks. People like James Wallman, the man, the myth, the legend behind the World Experience Organization. Lovingly referred to as the WXO, he created the world's first and only global institution dedicated to connecting people across all sectors of the experience economy. What's the experience economy, you ask? Sheesh. Well, briefly, the experience economy refers to the economic shift in value from commodities to goods to services to experiences. For businesses, that means the experience, ideally the memorable, the maybe even immersive experience itself is the product. It's not what you sell, but how it makes the people you're serving feel. That's what the people are paying for. Of course, I'll be the first to tell you that can mean a lot of different things. The phrase experience economy is coined by Joe Pine and James Gilmore in a 1998 Harvard Business Review article that later became their first book, The Experience Economy, Work as Theater, and Every Business a Stage. The term describes a world in which people are no longer satisfied with just buying things like coffee beans or getting things done like purchasing a latte. Instead, they want to feel something, learn something, or be transformed. I mean, who doesn't love it when the barista remembers your name? Beyond retail, the experience economy touches multiple sectors, spanning immersive theater, experiential marketing and branded environments, museums and culture, travel and hospitality, technology and user experience, live events, even healthcare. This is where James and the WXO come in. Because while James was maybe not the first to notice the lack of cohesion, he was certainly the first person to do anything about it. Around 2017, 2018, James, a man who was at once deeply frustrated with present-day consumerist culture, and yet so inspired by the potential of experiences to radically improve the lives of humans on planet Earth, he saw an opening to create a community of creative, commercial people who want to make better experiences for everyone. And he did it. Or, he's doing it. So who is James Wallman? James is a futurist, best-selling author, strategist, keynote speaker, and the founder and CEO of the WXO. He's also, as you'll hear, just plain awesome. Known globally as an experienced design evangelist, James has spent over 2 decades advising everyone from luxury brands to government, cultural institutions, creative studios, and tech companies on how to create memorable, meaningful, human-centered experiences for the people they serve. His first book, Stuffication, was published in 2015. His second book, Time and How to Spend It, was published in 2019 and named a Financial Times Book of the Year. As the driving force behind the WXO, James connects creators, designers, strategists, and experience makers from around the world, literally, through virtual and in-person events and programming, facilitating cross-disciplinary collaboration, thought leadership, and the elevation of the experience as its own economy. Personally, I was excited to talk to James because I've had the pleasure of watching James build this community from the sidelines in real time. And it's incredible. It is so hard to build a thriving community, an economically sustainable global community of opinionated creatives, no less. It's the most obvious things that are the hardest to pull off because if they weren't, everyone would be doing it. The WXO would already exist. That's why watching James pulled off in real time has been such a masterclass, not just in community building, but in conviction. I love talking to James because his story reminds me of something Oprah once said. She said, "The big secret in life is that there is no big secret. Whatever your goal, you can get there if you're willing to work." Fortunately for us, James, in addition to being a thinker, is a doer. His story proves when it comes to doing what you firmly believe needs to be done, there simply ain't nothing to it but to do it.
I'm James Wallman. I'm the founder of the World Experience Organization. Been running this now for about 5 years or so. I'm also a dad. I've got 2 beautiful children. That's probably not very interesting. So many people are parents, right? But my little boy played soccer for the school for the first time this week. And I ditched a call. In fact, I left work at lunchtime Tuesday to see my son kick a ball around. It was so fun. Anyway, so I'm a dad. And my little girl, she's amazing too.
Even before James started the WXO, he was a busy guy. Since 2003, he's been hard at work as an author and trend forecaster.
Making up stuff about the future, trying to figure out what the future looks like, which is a hell of a lot of fun because the magic of trying to figure out the future is you're always wrong. It's just a question of how far from incredibly wrong you can be. So therefore, as an intellectual challenge, as a challenge of thinking, it's fun. Really good fun. And that's how I came into the world of experiences, by working for companies, the Absolute Company, BMW, brands like Gillette, and many others, trying to figure out what the future looks like. And I came to believe that we were moving from materialism to experientialism, from material things to experiences, defining culture in our world, in our society.
Being a futurist sounds like a made-up job. But people like James are important. While the rest of us have our heads down, doing the work right in front of us, thinking 2, maybe 3, 4 steps ahead, the futurists are the ones looking up and out, advising the rest of us on what lies ahead.
I was on a TV show, and it was after my first book had come out and got picked up by Penguin and kind of taken off. And I was, TV and radio and this stuff, and people knew what I did for a living finally. And it was on this quite big chat show in the UK. And this woman who was on a sofa was like, "So you're a futurist?" And she it was the way her voice is like, "This is a bullshit made up term. Okay, but you say you are it." And nowadays it's become more of a thing. I've been doing this for a while. It's become more of a thing. What does it mean? Does it mean that you care about the future? Well, you're mad if you don't care about the future, right?
But you know what someone said to me once? They were talking about branding and like coming up with some weird thing to show that if a brand used the color blue would improve revenue by 1%. And he was telling me for a company like Ford, that 1% means something. So it's like even you coming in and helping validate someone's ideas of what's happening next, that's almost more you as a third-party validator to be like, well, if you're going to make any bets, put it on red.
Yeah, I've done like the future of food in Finland and the future of gender equality, future of cities, future of all sorts of things. The thing is, truth be told, this is between us, I think futurists are playing a parlor game, right? They're playing a bit of fun. This is what the future is. Investors are real futurists because they are putting skin in the game and taking that risk. Entrepreneurs are building the future. There's that line that someone says, the best way to predict the future is to create it, which annoys the crap out of me. That's not the best way to predict the future. Predict means say it beforehand. Pre means beforehand. Dict is from dico, dicere, dici dictum in Latin, right? To say, right? So predict the future is not the same as to make it, but having a bet on the future means that you invest your resources, your time, your energy, your capital, into something that is going to, sorry, I could get really boring about how, but there are some things that when you predict it, it has an impact on what's going to happen. So if someone like Bill Gates stands up and says, I believe the future is AI, let's make this up, obviously that's not new, but then other people go, oh, Bill Gates, he's been successful once, or not once, many times over decades. He must be right. That's going to impact the market. But if a weather forecaster says it's going to rain tomorrow, that doesn't impact the weather. There's a brilliant book called The Signal and the Noids by Nate Silver, the probabilistic forecaster, that kind of looks at this in more detail. But, trying to figure out the future is fun. Trying to make the future happen, investing in it in some way, creating it. Maybe that's what we're all doing, right, Maya? It's what you're doing with this. Whitewater, the idea is to maybe celebrate the fact that it all turns to shit and you got to fix it because that's how it is, right?
Celebrate the fact that things are unfolding in real time.
Well, running a community is a new thing for James. The raw idea behind it, that experiences, not stuff, are the things that actually bring us joy. That's an idea he's been promoting for a while.
My first book was called Stuffication, How We've Had Enough of Stuff and Want Experiences More Than Ever. Through the work, as well as believing that we're moving from materialism to experientialism, there's that key piece of information that says that if you want to be happy, you should spend less relatively on stuff and more on experiences. Experiences are more likely to make you happy than stuff. So you should spend on experiences. So I'm like, okay, I should do something with this. And off the back of that, I tried to do this startup that was about getting people to spend less on stuff and spend more on experiences. And also what I discovered was that people don't necessarily read books and do what they read in them. People would buy my book and they'd say, I love your book. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, I really like it. And they'd be buying more shit, right? They'd just buy more stuff. And I'd be like, wow, even my brother. It was Christmas not long after. I met my dad and my brother for a drink before Christmas. And my dad turned up with a whole set of wine glasses that match, like you would, right? Because all of our wine glasses don't match because who cares if wine glasses match? It's not an important part of my life. His wife had bought these wine glasses. And I was like, I've got wine glasses. He's like, yeah, I know, but she bought this. She thought you'd like a whole bunch of wine glasses that match. I'm like, no. I didn't just write the book. I'm not going to be happier if my wine glasses match. I mean, I want a receptacle to put wine in and drink it. That's a nice thing to have. And I'm like, I've written this book. Do people not believe me? If it's not changing the behavior of somebody that close to me, what have I done? So I tried to do this thing. It was kind of working, getting people to buy experience gifts, not stuff. But I wasn't working very quickly.
But so let's talk about this. Can you describe where you were at, literally, but maybe even figuratively, emotionally, spiritually, when the whole idea of building this community started to formulate for you?
I can tell you where I was literally and physically because we were on a beach. It was 2018. I was on the beach that we go to in Spain with my wife and kids. And my wife and I, we, play with the kids and have a cafe con leche at the beach bar, talk about what we're doing, right? And I'd been doing some work at the time for the Department for International Trade, which is now the Department for Business and Trade, part of the UK government. And so I was a sector specialist in the experience economy doing some work for them. And the work that I was doing was on what should the strategy be for this department. And my take was that, so if you work for the British government, okay, what the British government do is they wave the British flag, say the Brits are best at everything. What they want to do is sell British services overseas. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. As a strategy, that's all right. That's what they do. They do it very well. And I said, look, I'd noticed, and having worked in this field for a while, there was no organization for the experience economy. There were vertical sectors like IAPA for theme parks, for example, and experiential marketing has got its sector, and museums have their organizations, but nothing was bringing them together. Mm-hmm. And my suggestion was that what we should do instead was to create a global organization for the experience economy. By doing that, what we would do is grow the pie. And if you grow the pie, your piece of the pie grows too, rather than just focusing on your piece of the pie. But also what we could do is, the people at the British government want to think that the Brits are the best. And that makes sense. I'm British. I like British people and British companies. They're lovely. But it turns out, as you're probably aware, American people can be quite good at doing things as well. And Germans and French and Canadians and Mexicans. There are other people around the world who make amazing experiences and have got different specialisms.
Mm-hmm.
So my take was, let's create this global organization. Then we can identify where the Brits really are number one or number two or number three or number four, or, and where other people are particularly good. But we would grow this as a sector. That was my take. I don't know how much work you've done with government, but they said, that is a lovely idea, James. Thank you very much. And we're going to do something else. That doesn't fit what we want to do. I thought it was a great idea. They didn't. They're working for people, right? Working for people. Just because you think something's a good idea doesn't mean anyone else does. And I remember sat with my wife. I've still got the notes, actually. We were like, is it the Experience Association? Or what should this be called? And what does it look like? And who's it for? And look, at the time, in fact, I was at business school. I was finishing my second book, actually, because it came out in 2019.
This was his book, Time and How to Spend It.
And so we started noodling on it and playing with it. And it was just a missing. It was something that should have existed in the world. As you probably know from conversation with me and coming to WXO events, I've never created one of these organizations before. But I was like, this thing should exist. Somebody should do it. Nobody's doing it. Okay, I'll do it. That was the kind of process. I was like, can I do it? Does anybody else think this is true? And then it took a little while to then go from that to, classic lean startup approach. Does this problem exist for anybody other than me? Are there people that believe in it? Customers? What's our value proposition? And build out from there.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting because it sort of ties to what you were saying about the thinkers versus the investors, or it's like you believed enough in this future that you invested in yourself. You put a lot of your own skin in the game. Can you talk a little bit about those first steps? Okay, we're doing this, so now what?
Yeah, okay. Talking of skin in the game, I'd never had credit cards. I mean, sometimes you pay something, you pay it straight off. I think I need to count them up, actually, because they're in drawers at different places, or I've moved on from 0% and failed to do that, etc. There was one time I was at a conference in the States, actually, and I gave a keynote, and then someone else hadn't turned up because they weren't well, and I was like, I'll do that. And I sort of ran a campfire workshop, and I'd be hanging out with people. At the times when I wasn't, I was slipping away to hide in a room to try and get a loan because I couldn't sleep. I was awake 22 hours. Yeah, it was a mix of, sobbing and calling banks to try and find money to pay these people I owed it. But I've finally come through that. I currently don't have any credit card debt because also getting debt for a small company is really, really hard. Mm-hmm. And we've never had any outside backing. I didn't want to do that process, but because frankly, I don't know enough about what I'm doing here. I don't want to waste other people's money. So 2017 to 2018, I went to business school. I didn't do an MBA. I did this course in entrepreneurship. The University of Cambridge has this place, the Judge Business School, and I went there. That was a brilliant course, more transformational than the other two times I've been to university, honestly. First time, classics degree, second time, a master's in journalism, both really awesome. But this was a transformational course that changed my way of thinking. And it set me up to think, this is a good idea. How the hell do I bring this thing to life? Because it's a step-by-step process. There's a great book by a guy called Ash Maurya called Lean Canvas. It's a bit like the business model canvas, but it's the lean canvas. And you follow this lean startup approach of, step one, articulate the problem, and then ask other people if they think that problem opportunity, same thing, right? Does this thing exist? And so I followed this playbook. I went and asked a whole bunch of people, hey, I think there's this problem. I think there's this opportunity that we can connect people in museums, in sports stadiums, or theme parks, or designer cities, or user experience, or customer experience, or location-based experiences. To me, beginning, middle, end, before, during, after, doesn't matter if you call them patient, player, user, customer, employee, inhabitant, doesn't matter what you call them, they're all a human having an experience. Therefore, the ideas can be transferable. With the trend forecast, I do a lot of work in innovation. It's where I say I work for IDEO and would run innovation sessions based around trends that were happening. So I had that background of, if you look over there and you look over there and you bring these ideas together, then you come up with good ideas, bad ideas, whatever, right? Yeah, exactly. Something different. So I started to put that idea to other people saying, do you think this exists? Some people said yeah. Some people said no, but I got enough signal to say yeah. So I built a coalition of people, a group of people, co-founders, people like Joe Pine, bunch of people around the world, and then got a website going, and then started to have irregular meetups. And then I went to something a guy called Brian Hill, who's a professor at BYU, was doing, which was like a book club. Like we talk about a paper on experience design. And I just thought, that's a good idea. We're going to do that. So that's when the campfires were born.
The WXO's campfires are, well, think of them like Creative Salon meets Global Brainstorm. They're live virtual gatherings where experienced designers, thinkers, and makers from all over the world come together to share and swap ideas, together pushing the boundaries of what a great experience can be. The way they're structured, with input talks followed by discussion and small random breakout groups, make for great networking as well.
People started to really like those. And so they started to become a thing. And we started to publish ideas around there to share with people. Then, to be frank, I was running out of money quickly. I was talking to Joe Pye. I was like, this is great. And he said, why don't you do membership? Really. And I was like, okay, it's an idea. Mm-hmm. We do these campfires. Oh, I see there's a revenue stream here. That means I can do this, because I was doing other work. But really, I was doing this work because this is the thing that was making my ear kind of tick. And I don't want to be too weird about it, but I felt like I had a purpose when I was doing something meaningful.
That's so interesting. I mean, I've talked to a few people who are like looking to build communities, and a lot of people get stuck at that place that you were at where it's like you're doing something, you're talking, people are coming together, but then how do you monetize it such that it becomes something that's sustainable and that you can keep doing? Because as human beings, we only have so much time and space and resources. You've got kids, a family, a job, you're writing books, you're in school, which actually that's so cool. I mean, you're such a learner. You're such a curious person, and I feel like we think similarly because this is how I think about everything. I think of everything as the same. And we have different labels and names, and we call things different things, but human beings, we're all human. So people tend to do similar things. And so that's where it's like, if you track decision-making over here, you can learn a lot that you might apply over here. Like you see certain synergies that wouldn't otherwise exist.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I had the time at some point in the next couple of years. I will get the time to write some of this down. There's probably another book in me, probably a few. But what you just said there, learning. What's really funny, sometimes people do say that to me, that I'm really curious, which is really odd because I don't think of myself as a very curious person. Because I think there's so much bullshit out there. And there are so many people trying to sell you ideas that I sort of swing between this deep naivety, I get really excited about things, and this radical skepticism that everything is not true. So generally when somebody says something to me, I'm like, that's just bollocks, isn't it? It's not true. How can that be true? Anyway.
No, it's because it's like, I need to read this book, Signal and Noise, but I do think that sometimes it's because if you're a learner and you're curious, there are certain things that stick out as, oh, that's interesting, that's new. Like the things that feel cynical are the things that feel like, oh, we've heard this before, like blah, 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 blah. But it's like, boom, it's like all of a sudden you're attuned to that's new. And that's why you're a futurist, because you're seeing things, you're able to point out what's new and what's different before anyone else sees it. The divergence from the norm.
Turns out when it comes to things like entrepreneurship and innovation, curiosity and skepticism don't compete. They complement each other, together pushing ideas further than either could alone. This, to me, is where James' story gets very interesting, because it's one thing to offer value for free, quite another to put a price tag on it.
Were you nervous? Like, was there anything you had to learn when you first put out, like, hey, we're doing memberships, it's going to cost X amount? Because that is very scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I was super nervous because I didn't know if anyone would do it. I didn't know if I'd get the pricing right. I mean, we've changed the price a lot to try and figure that out. I mean, it's only just around now that we break even most months. I read a lot of books on it because I've been on the course, right, about what should the membership do. What should we offer people? What's realistic? Because you don't want to lie, especially when we first started. But I was also really naive because, I'd talked to more than 100 people by then, and probably like 110, 120 or so, which is a hell of a lot of Zoom calls before good transcripts and ChatGPT to get through the transcripts. I just want to point that out. It's just like that. Think how it is nowadays. Oh my God. Amazing. Mm-hmm. I think every time we do anything, I've been going through a process, or we've been going through a process over the past months, working on a new type of membership as well, which is based on the process that an entrepreneur should follow. You don't just build something. You kind of like half build something. You say, what do you think of this? And you build it with people and you build demands. Customer development is Steve Blank's term, right? But then you put your head above the parapet. You think about you launching this. You talk to people and they're like, yeah, hey, you're really good at talking to people. You should do this thing. You got to want to do it. Other people want you to do it. There's that ikigai stuff. And there's a line in the startup world that says, there's no point in building something nobody wants.
Mm-hmm.
I once met this French or Algerian entrepreneur in London, and they built this amazing tool that was going to revolutionize travel, right? And I'm sure we've all met people that have built this thing that they think is going to revolutionize everything, and generally it's not. And they'd spent £100,000 building this product. And I was like, so who have you tested it with? They hadn't gone through that process. I'm like, wow, you spent £100,000. Why? What you should do is you build a really hooky version first, right? MVP, minimal viable product, build that crappy version. But then there's a lot of incrementalism in entrepreneurship, and maybe less so in California, because there's a lot of money sloshing around that's looking for a home, and people are willing to take big bets and take those risks. And maybe, in a place like the UK, people are a bit more scared, but you've got to build something and go through that process. So how does that feel? Yeah, pretty scared. But if you get it wrong, you backtrack and you do something else.
You do something else. Now that's the entrepreneurial spirit. While editing this episode, I was reminded of a dance teacher I had that used to say, the sensation is the information. As an entrepreneur, when you're building anything new, you have to learn to measure progress in terms that go beyond revenue. Income can be slow, sometimes painfully slow to catch up, and one of the biggest challenges is simply staying in the game long enough to see results. That's why in James' case, early signals, community traction, enthusiasm, and peer-to-peer collaboration matter. They're the same signals he looks for today, the quiet green lights that say, keep going.
What were some of your early wins where you're like, okay, this is working to the extent that I can keep investing in building this thing?
I want to come back to that phrase about how there's no point in building something that nobody wants. But there's another phrase, and it's one I like to trot out because I came up with it. And it's, there's no point in building something that you don't want to do. If you get good at something and it pays for your life, etc., and you don't love it, what the fuck are you doing? You're going to die, and probably sooner than you want, right? Even someone as young as you, Maya, it's going to come to us all, right? And what are you going to say? Tragically, most people don't say they wish they'd spent more time at work. And that seems like an obvious thing to go, obviously, but I fucking love work. I fucking love it. I really do. I mean, I love my kids more. But in my work, I talk to people like you. We do those events. When I came to Burbank that time, that was so much fun. I work with Pippa and Mike here in the office. Mike's not here every day. We have fun. I enjoy the work we do. It's challenging. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't love looking at spreadsheets, but that's also exercising and expanding my mind and trying to figure stuff out. And that's hard and it's fun. And so I've moved to find the thing that I love doing. I mean, that's not to say, I used to be a writer, right? And I loved that. That was fun. I used to give talks and do some travel, but it wasn't generating enough revenue. And it got to the point I said to my wife, this is going back a bit. I said, look, if the money's not coming okay, by this time next year, I'll get a job. And when that came round, I said, okay, I'm going to go to business school because I didn't want to go get a job. I didn't want to do that. Sorry, to answer your question, what wins did I get? Joe Pine said, yeah. Joe Pine, who wrote the book, The Experience Economy. I talked to Joe. I was like, look, Joe, I want to do this thing. What do you think? Are you in? And he was like, yeah. And I thought, that's good. Also, I'd met Matt Durden, a real pioneer in the experience economy, and he felt the same. There was a guy, Maurizio, who was in New York, Italian guy, who got knocked off his bike and died a few months after we started, which was really deeply sad. He was very much a tech guy, but in experiences, he was a real supporter. I think Olivia was a real win, right?
Olivia Squire was the WXO's first head of content.
She was fun to work with. The campfires, when it's all been really difficult, and there have been some real times, somebody sharing their stuff, someone getting up at 2 a.m., someone getting up at 5 a.m. to present to people around the world. We had a talk yesterday. We had people in Riyadh and Singapore and Sydney, and there's a part of me that's like, ooh, all these people around the world who we're bringing ideas to. And then I saw Matthew Purdon in San Francisco has done something with 3 other people in the WXO. There's another thing, Jerry Lee. You know Jerry?
Yeah, I know Jerry.
Okay, awesome. He did something in Los Angeles and worked with Sandesh, who's in the north of England, and Ramsey. And I'm like, we're bringing these people together. And Nasir Kamrat and Stephanie Reeks, they told me they'd known each other before WXO, but WXO really brought them together, and now they've launched this amazing AI
I didn't know that.
So they became real friends through the WXO. They told me.
Yeah, it's a very friendly community. But I mean, when you think about the wins, it's the people who gathered around the idea. It's the people who you're able to now build this with. And I think that's fascinating, but it also speaks to I hate this word, honestly, the authenticity, but the realness, the raw human connection that lives at the heart of the WXO. And I think that that's because it's something that's so real for you. It is inevitably in the fabric of the community. Where it's like, if your goal was money,
I want money. Money would be great as well. I'd love it, just make life easier.
But if you were like some investor, someone bought the WXO and they're like, great, this is profitable. Like all that community would just dry up.
Yeah. Before we did the first World Experience Summit, I went to an experience event this company put on. This was in London, actually. It was about immersive experiences. And it was in this place. It was like a lecture theatre, but like, a lecture theatre makes it sound interesting. It was this horrible corporate space with people standing at the front with a PowerPoint, selling their stupid shit. And it was run by a company that did events. And they were like, oh, this is a good market. We should do one of these. And I was like, no. If this was an accounting conference, absolutely. Do your thing in the right way for that thing. But yeah.
As James was building the WXO, he found that, despite the positive initial response he was getting via conversations and surveys, it would take a little longer for people to actually buy in. Just as he discovered after publishing Stuffication, he learned that it's one thing for people to agree with you, quite another for them to change their behavior such that it now reflects that worldview.
Did anything surprise you? Like, what were some things that maybe didn't quite go to plan? Or you're like, man, I'm shocked that this didn't work out, actually.
Kind of everything. To me, so much. So when we launched the membership, and I remember talking to Kelly Vaught in LA about the membership, he was one of the first people I talked about. How much should we charge for this? What should we do here? What are these things going for? I remember having this really great conversation. And it was Stefan Weil in Germany. I'd sent him a link to say, does this make sense to you? Does this work? And he just clicked it and bought. But at first I was cross, but he's technically our first member.
It's like the best feedback.
Yeah, exactly. It took me a little while because, crap entrepreneur. I was like, oh, hold on. He clicked it. He's given us some money. This is amazing. But then I thought, I don't know if we had 1,000 forms filled out by that point, and people but literally were saying, we've got this idea for the World Experience Organization. What do you think it should be? What do you think it should do? I thought they'd all just click the button and sign up. Oh, no. It took until the 31st of December for our 100th member to join. And I've still got this big piece of paper because at the time I was very much at home working, So I got this big bit of paper that was in squares. And every time somebody joined, I would draw the flag of where they were from on it. I found it recently the other day, and it would slowly fill up. But I was shocked in that first month that I thought I'd open the doors, everyone just kind of run in to buy and join. And they didn't. They just took their time. And that was incredible learning. And the learning was, what was the learning? The learning was, it ain't going to go quite as well as you think. And then when we did the first World Experience Summit in London in 23, I thought we'd sell this ticket super quickly. And turns out, going from one country to another and buying into an event that's never happened before takes people a bit longer. And also people bought late. And that was stressful. That was just, oh my God.
No one's thinking about your planning. Everyone's like, I'm going. I'll buy the ticket. And you're like, just do it so I can sleep tonight.
Yeah.
But we can ask you, because you had your 100th member on the 31st of December, but when did you start?
Oh, so officially, I think we opened in June and Stefan bought his in May. So it was July. Because I think we were still playing in the June. It was July that was like officially open. We actually went, right, come on, we're open. Come join us. So yeah, it took 6 months to get 100. And then to carry on with other things that went wrong. I was really keen that we were going to build that circle that we have.
The circle is the WXO's membership platform.
But I was trying to build our version. And I spent, this might have been that following year, I started to build this version so we'd have a social network to give members more to connect with each other, right? Because, cost a lot of money. Not a lot of money, but relative for me, for WXO, a lot of money and real stress to try and build this thing. And then we just picked a product that was on the shelf. And they're like, oh, turns out we can do 70, 80% of what we want to do and we can just do that. And, well, that works. Technical stuff has been a real challenge. And there are times where, coming back to this idea of the customer development and that whole concept of building what people actually want is really good, but forecasting what revenues might be, every time I've done a forecast, it's always incredibly wrong. And, friends of mine, my brother, who's a project manager and just did a $1 billion piece of work, a financing thing for a computer company that is named after a piece of fruit. He runs these big teams and big projects that have got a real, this is what we're going to do by this point. You know what you're going to spend because that's how it's worked out. I mean, maybe people are just much smarter than me. And what I found is that way doesn't feel right because otherwise you build something, but that's not what people want. So there's a lot of chicken and eggy going along. But the next thing that I really did wrong, I want to pick up on that, was changing the team. I made a big change of team at the back end of last year. And it's really hard to find good people or the right people for the right thing.
It's like someone can be very good at the thing, but you just don't vibe, or there's like that disconnect.
It's funny you say that because, there was a bit of a revolving door for a period of time. I had someone join, had a nervous breakdown, which was deeply stressful. And other people who look really good on paper and aren't, and other people who are possibly very good, but I don't think they like me. Fair enough, right? But you've got to have fun at work. I think that's really important.
When you're building a global community for a very intelligent, very creative, very vocal group of people, you have to expect that you're going to get a lot of opinions about not only what you're doing, but how you're doing it. And it's a really delicate balance, knowing when to keep a piece of feedback and when to just ignore it. Bill Taylor, one of the founders of Fast Company, is quoted as saying, "The true mark of a leader is the willingness to stick with the bold course of action, even as the rest of the world wonders why you're not marching in step with the status quo." It is the leader's job to know this line in the sand and to guard it with their life. Because it only takes a few bad decisions, a few small concessions, for something that was once very distinct to become something that is basic, completely indistinguishable from everything else, which, in my opinion, is a real cheap one-way ticket to irrelevance.
What have you learned about building in public? Because some people are able to build products in silos and in quiet, behind closed doors. But you, especially at this point, it's like the whole, well, at least the experience economy, that whole world we're watching. So what has that experience taught you about leadership or vulnerability? And
oh, bless you for asking me about leadership. I don't know if I can say anything about that. it's a fucking nightmare if I'm really honest. But that is maybe launching anything, right? If you put your head above the parapet, if you stand up and do something, someone's going to tell you got it wrong. I remember I gave a talk when my first book came out at this place called the Royal Society of Arts. One of the first comments was, does he think those are nice sneakers or something? And on reflection, this person was right. They were horrible, right? They were these pair of Nike and a little bit of a, the Nike swoosh and day-glow yellow soles. They were revolting. This person was right. This is public. People comment. And I'm not very thick-skinned, which is a bit of a tragedy for me. The trick is, and I say this to people, even to Mike, our head of content, he works so hard, right? I've got a great team. I'm like, look, Mike, the key is to care, but not care too much, right? Or just to care enough. Because if you go left, someone will say you should have gone right. If you go right, someone will say you should have gone left. You can't please all the people all the time. I think maybe that's also the skill of the entrepreneur, the leader, maybe all of us, right? Feedback is a gift. Thank you so much for your feedback. And to take on board that which is relevant, that which isn't. My wife, sometimes I'll put something on and she's like, that generally. So I've learned not to wear those things, obviously, because that's marriage. But also, sometimes I'm like, that's what I want to wear, right? And so sometimes where there's been some tensions in the community, it's a community of people, real people, and creative people. Herding cats is a nightmare. And, creative people, guess what? They've all got an opinion. Your price is too high. Your price is too low. You're doing this in the wrong place. You should do it here. You should do it there. You should do this. You should do that. And I think those are really generous people sharing their thoughts. And one of the things about being a global organization across different sectors is we're trying to serve quite a broad range of people. If we were just for, location-based experience marketing people in North America, in fact, not North America, in California, then we've got a really tight target group, and we haven't, and that's deliberate because that's not where innovation comes from. We don't have 100% retention rates, which are, natural attrition anyway, people leaving the industry and stuff. But some people don't get it. They just don't get it.
Something I wanted to ask you about is working with all these different disciplines, because it is creatives, it is the marketers, it is the developers. I'm sure you get lawyers and all these other service providers. And so how do you hold space for all these different expectations?
I'm going to borrow from you here. What you said about how we're all humans. They're all humans.
Mm-hmm.
We want to see and be seen. We want to talk. We want to be heard. Holding space for humans, I think, is holding space for humans. And somebody who had some issues helped us write some codes of conduct. Don't be a jerk, which is really nice. And simplicity. But the truth is always borrowing from other people. I go to these kind of hippie ceremonies. Been to a fair few shaman kind of experiences over the past number of years. And I see the way those people hold space. And also there's that great book, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. That's a great book. I wish she'd reply to my email sometimes, but never. She's got no interest in talking to me. But that book, The Art of Gathering, was really instrumental for me in trying to think about how you might hold space, but also seeing how other people do it with kindness, be nice to people. I got that from another woman actually in Manhattan. This idea of no person left behind, actually, was that her idea? No, it wasn't. It's in the Trolls movie, where they say, no troll left behind. You know the Trolls movie?
I haven't watched it. I'm familiar.
Yeah, no person left behind. So I try and bring people into the conversation. Because actually, that's the other thing. The people that do all the talking, people like me, right, often don't have the interesting stuff to say. It's the other ones. This person in San Francisco who I called upon recently in Campfire. And they were like, I missed it there. And I obviously reached out to apologize. I reached out to say, hey, by the way, sorry, I didn't mean to. And they got back to me and said, sorry, I just lost concentration. Come to me another time. So the next week, I was able to call on them and they were up for it. So that was great. I don't know if you've ever experienced this with me, but I like to push people a little bit because I think that's more interesting. I don't want to just be nice. That's boring. You could push people in a nice way that shows respect for them. And it's a learning curve. Maybe I should say that as well. I think this is a real problem that you guys have got in your culture. We have it in our culture too. But this real problem with bloody offending, it's like, what the fuck? Let's have a proper conversation. I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me. I should be careful when I say offending people, because I think it's one of the things running a public organization. I'm always one of those people that sails a little close to the wind. I have to have a public face too and be more thoughtful than I am naturally as a person. I remember giving a talk, this is a while ago in Cambridge maybe, getting people to hug. I was giving a talk for, I don't know, 150 people or something. I'm like, right, I want everyone to turn to the person next to you, don't even know them, and tell them your name and give them a hug. And lots of people are like, this is great. And I saw this woman. I remember seeing the look on this woman's face of fear is the wrong word, but it was, I don't want to do this. She didn't want to be touched. I'm a cisgender white male, right? I don't mind giving someone a hug. But actually, there's enough women out there in the world who have been touched inappropriately at some point. And I learned from that. And, it's a journey of learning, of going, here's the thing I want you to do. If that doesn't work for you, do a hug from a distance, right? Do something. You ever come across Donald Brown's list of human universals, about universal things that happen for all human societies? So you got in-groups and out-groups and stuff like this, right? We all want to be the in-group of some sort. We want to belong to the tribe. Exile is the worst thing. Putting people on solitary confinement is the worst thing. Obviously, right? We're a hyper-social species. People want to belong. So if you can give people the opportunity to belong and push them a bit, because comfort zones are fun to play with, but then have the respect that when you've gone too far, to get on it quick and say sorry and make sure somebody feels brought back in again.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we all need to just take a deep breath and relax. Let's laugh at ourselves. And the thing that I always say, I think we as this culture can't decide, are we all the same or are we all different? And if we're all different, we have to appreciate the fact that some people that are different from us will think that their differences make them better than our, and so that's just the name of the game.
I'm going to borrow from this brilliant woman, Eva Kolodziejska, who did some teaching with me about my presentation on point. And this line of hers, I think I used it in my second book, we're all snowflakes, but we're all snow. As soon as somebody thinks they're better than somebody else, they've got real problems. I think my way of seeing the world is the right one. I know it isn't, but if I didn't think it was right, why would I believe it? Obviously yours is better than mine, and I think mine's better than yours, and that's fine.
Well, I like yours too. So
I like yours too.
So let me ask you, what role does imagination play in keeping community alive?
This is the cognitive revolution, isn't it, right? Of 50, 60,000 years ago, that we see things that exist that don't really exist. And this is that, what's his name? Yuval Noah Harari, in that brilliant book, Sapiens, that talks about community exists in here.
He's pointing at his head.
The United States of America doesn't actually exist, does it? It's a collective fiction that we say exists. You think about that line that crosses over from the United States to Mexico, or from, States to Canada. That's a very, very artificial line. What's the difference between the ground on that side and the ground on that side? They speak more Spanish there, but and also England doesn't exist. It's a concept that's gone on for a long time that people talk about. The World Cup, the soccer World Cup, what is it? Bunch of millionaires kicking something around. What is that? It doesn't have any. But life is a bit like a game of soccer, right? During the 90 minutes, it really matters, but afterwards, it doesn't matter at all. But anyway, so the imagination, imagination is the thing that sets us apart, isn't it? Our ability to hold ideas and to share them in language, right? That we can share ideas with other people. So what role does imagination have? I think it's the thing that holds us together. Now you say it like that. There's that lovely book about imagination where he'd made it all up. Do you remember that book a few years ago? I think it might have been called Imagination. Jonah Lehrer. What's magic about this is it had to get pulled because he made up the quotes. He had quotes from Bob Dylan and stuff. He just made it up and they pulled it. But
that was the whole concept, right? Was that he was making it up?
No. So it was published in 2012 and they actually recalled the publisher, but not before I'd been sent a copy, because I worked in the publishing world and I'd written a book and they want people like that to read these books. So I got a free copy. And what's my point? I'm just thrilled that I've got a book that's not in print. And he lied. Good for him. That's imagination. Maybe what isn't imagination, maybe that's a start, right? You think about these colors. These have been put together You think about the jumper that you're wearing, the imagination that's gone into that. Is imagination just another word for creativity, or is imagination what happens in here and then we make it happen? I don't know.
Imagination is, I don't know. Now that I think about it, it's kind of like it's the ability to conceive of something that doesn't exist. I don't know. I just feel like, to your point, maybe the whole point of the World Experience Organization, it's like the whole mission, unless I'm mistaken, is how can we work together? How can we share resources and ideas and capabilities and expertise to make what we're doing better, to improve upon the future that we're already being catapulted in, right? So we need a lot of imagination. And I think maybe that's the connecting thread, at least for a lot of people in this space, is because there's a curiosity baked into that. There's so much we learn from each other about what's coming next or what's possible. That's so interesting, actually, because I had an old boss in Berlin who we would do these like masterclass events. And that's always been my thing. When I do an event, I'm like, all these events are so boring and I don't care who's speaking. Like, you learn very little at the end of the day. But the big takeaway is, how do you feel at the end of that day? Am I exhausted? Am I tired? Or am I energized and I'm thrilled and I'm excited to follow up? I just laughed for the entire afternoon. I just had so much fun. And so for me, the takeaway of a good event is that I left having made a new friend. That's always how I think about events, like the co-creation, that people leave and they go build something together. Like what you're talking about with Nadia and her business partner. So all of a sudden, then the WXO becomes this incredible multiplier.
No, that's really at the heart of it. And forgive me for not knowing the definition of imagination. And thank you for pointing that out.
I just made it up. I could be wrong.
It was good. I imagine a world where experientialism is the thing. So people don't go and buy more shit they don't need, but they do go and spend money on experiences to keep the system going through, and they find happiness. So yeah, I think the WXO is about creating that vision and getting people to imagine that and making it happen.
Through it all, the core of James' work remains the same: to get people to spend their money on something that might actually bring them joy. Okay, so you started this, technically the initial idea is 2018. It's almost the end of 2025.
I didn't launch it till 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, just there was a big gap because I didn't have any idea of what I was going to do. 2018, 2019, I was noodling around with it, and then COVID hit, which gave me the chance to stay home and go, right, let's go build this thing. I also had a book to publish, which was a Financial Times Book of the Year, by the way. And I was, to be honest, life was working out because that book came out and I was doing keynotes and workshops around the world. I flew first class once. Someone flew me first class to Dubai to give a talk. Really? First and only time.
Well, it's interesting because it's like you're getting off one wave and it's a good ride, right? Like that ride back to shore is good. It's gone well. But then you jump right back into the whitewater with this community and this idea launched in 2020. You're 5 years in. You've done 3 annual summits. You've done probably hundreds of other events, virtual, in person, the reports. So like, where do you see yourself now? Do you feel like you're still kind of in the whitewater? Or do you feel like you're like on a shore, almost deciding where you take it next? Or where do you feel like things are at now? What is next for the WXO in your imagination?
I'm trying to settle things at the moment with the core of what we're doing. I'm really happy with the people in the team. But if you've seen, we're going to launch a venture builder.
Oh yeah, you told me. I think I saw this.
Yeah.
I did see this.
So the venture builder is really duck diving and getting back out for the wave. And what you do is you surf bigger waves, right? You start on the baby waves, they go to the big waves. But the WXO came from a missing. And the missing was, this thing should exist, it doesn't exist. The venture builder has come from the same kind of idea in that, I've seen, hundreds of decks. People share with us, here's what I'm working on. What do you think we should do? Or who's got the money? Everyone wants to build this thing that's only going to cost 4 million or 10 million or whatever. And they won't go through this process of building the MVP. But we've got this incredible community. It's about 1,130 or 40 or something at the moment of people in 50 countries that make experiences. And, from bigger companies to individuals, there's a lot of creators, but they don't know how to turn this project idea of theirs into a venture, into a proper business that gives returns for them, for investors, ongoing. Not just hey, I want to make this experience. Like, well, good. But what are the returns? What's the return on, your effort, your resources? Loads of people have ideas, but taking something and making it happen is hard. Because it's a really complicated game. There's the operational side, there's the creative side, there's the commercial side. You've got the real estate side as well. And that's a complicated game. You've got the feasibility before, you've got the marketing to do. It doesn't matter how great your experience is. You've got the story and the tech and playing that off against each other's experiences that so many don't work, even though the people behind them are really good. And I think there's a real missing for a lot of creators to turn those into ventures. So we're creating the venture builder. We sent out a call out, posted something on LinkedIn and said, anybody interested? And we had 120 people sign up to the call, and 89 of those people came. And probably about another 10 said, is there a recording? I can't come for whatever reason. So it's a pretty good signal in terms of signal and noise. That is a signal that says these people are interested. Well, to an extent, we said, do you want help to build your venture and maybe some money? It's a pretty easy call, right? We got to, let me not kid myself that this is some sort of magic. But again, this is customer value proposition stuff. Does this problem exist? Yes. There's a whole bunch of people that are interested in this. What we then need to do is get the person who's going to fund this so we can build these ventures. It'll be a tournament kind of model. Michael Tarragava is doing something not dissimilar, I think, in Los Angeles. So it's not like we're the first. It's just, I think there's a space this needs to be done. And so that is the next big wave. It's missing. We had some really interesting conversations. Obviously, it was more interesting, I'd say, we'd raise the money. There's a huge difference between interesting and raise the money, but we're going through that process. I'm sitting in on these calls and I'm like, oh, that's learning. It's brilliant. It's really, really good fun. But, we're 4 years in, which means that I've seen the way that this works. We're 171% ahead of where we were for the previous year. So that's very satisfying because it means it's where people are coming back again. But I now know what it looks like. And I also, because please God, can I not come out with zero money / negative money this year? That, if I can make it work and not come out down, that would be deeply satisfying. It's a passion play, right? If I was a clever person that was the money driven, I probably got the money right a bit earlier. Anyway, did I answer your question?
Yeah. No, totally. Like refining. It's like you said, settling, refining, taking what you've got and just continuing to iterate. But the ocean, that mysterious, beautiful thing, is never still for long.
I saw someone in the office today, this guy, and I was saying, I don't feel stressed. And he's like, on guard, because it's coming. Because, we're doing London Experience Week again, and we've got the Mayor of London supporting us. And I really want us to get to 1,000 people at London Experience Week, if not this year, then the year after.
Well, I love that. Congrats on having gotten to 1,100 members now. I remember when you got to 1,000.
Yeah. Hold on, let me just see, because I can see this. Let's see where we are right at the moment. 1,123. My apologies. There you go.
That's cool. Because I say your first million's the hardest to make.
There's a clip that circulates the internet every now and then of Jim Carrey in 2014 giving a commencement speech at Maharishi University of Management. In it, he talks about his dad, how his dad wanted to be a comedian but chose a responsible career as an accountant instead. And he got laid off. And Jim Carrey, because you always have to say famous people's full names, makes the point that if you can fail at doing something that you hate, you might as well fail at doing something that you love. And I say that just to say how fucking cool it is that James, in his quest to bridge a missing, he found his path. And despite years of persistent hard work and a hell of a lot of credit cards, he's having fun, doing the slow, incremental, fraught with commentary work of enhancing experiences for everyone. I guess on a final note, what are you excited about? What gets you up in the morning?
Well, the thing that first gets me up in the morning is my wife getting up really early dealing with my son. He's just going to a new school, and that's really fun. So I like to get up to have a chat with him in the morning, and I wave him off, and he sticks his fingers up at me because he's rude and he's funny. And then I sit with my daughter, and we have a bit of breakfast together, and we have a bit of a chat, and I'll hassle her about history or chemistry or something. And then here, and figuring out, I really want to make London Experience Week like Fashion Week, because Fashion Weeks reflected and heralded the age of consumer culture, really, post Second World War. We can do that with experiences, not just in London. When we do London Experience Week, New York Experience Week, Riyadh Experience Week, etc., that would be awesome.
I will tell you, if you can have a week dedicated to advertising, we could absolutely have a week dedicated to experiences.
Of course, yes, New York Advertising Week. All right,
I think it's happening now. Or
so if someone's got a bunch of money wants to support us to go do that, hallelujah, I'm open to that. I really do believe in capitalism and its power to make a better world, but I think it needs to be done right. Hence the fact people have to apply to join. I mean, really, we could have so many more members. I could be rich. I could be out of debt. It'd be lovely. But then they may not be the right people. Every time someone tries to advise me on growth, that's their starting point. They're like, stop doing that. Just let people pay money and join. Take their money.
No, but then you dilute the magic. And only experienced designers and people in the space could possibly understand the seeds of magic, in my humble opinion.
It really excites me every time I see collaborations happening, and every time we connect someone with someone else and someone's like, this is awesome. That really thrills me. At the moment, I'm really working on this new kind of product that is aimed at leaders, because I used to be a trend forecaster. I used to be what I do, figure out the future and write about it. We've been sitting on a State of the Experience Economy report for, oh my gosh, it's got to be 2 years now, because I've never been quite happy it's perfect, which is really bad, really, really bad. But when you launch something to the world, it's got to be not perfect, but you got to be proud of it, and it's not quite right. And so I hone my view of what's happening and what's going to happen is really fun. And you see, if I get the time to do that, we can start to advocate for the experience economy at a governmental level. That's what I really, really like to do. Making the experience economy famous, right? I think we're doing some of that by having London Experience Week, by existing as the World Experience Organization. It's just a journey. I think that's just the truth.
Whitewater is written, hosted, produced, edited, and all the rest by myself, Maya Geis, founder at Panikin Studios. Panikin Studios is an interdisciplinary shop of thinkers and doers. Medium agnostic, we're half think tank, half content studio, creating a whole machine that produces news stories for smart audiences. Learn more at www.panakin.co.